I was on the car of my life, but I was on the co-pilot seat, and every other people in my life were holding the wheel and they were turning it anywhere. And I was just like going from side to side because I was really living other people's lives and not really what I wanted to do. That turning point where I got laid off from work made me realize that I wasn't happy and I wasn't really living my life. That's when I decided to just do this journey and get a bit farther from all the people that were handling the wheel of the car and just taking the wheel myself and converting the car for a bicycle. I would only have one handlebar and I was the only one riding it.
Welcome to the Seek Travel Ride podcast, where we share the stories and experiences of people who have undertaken amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners.
Hello, I'm your host Bella Malloy and I'm excited to introduce my guest for today's episode of Seek Travel Ride, Marta Ballús. Marta is currently 9 months into a journey which will see her pedalling around the continent of South America. She's joining us today from Bolivia, having just crossed the infamous Salar de Uyuni salt flats. She's over 9,000 kilometres into this adventure, which has seen her cross through so many rich and diverse landscapes. From the desert salt flats to the high mountains of the Andes, volcanoes in Ecuador to seeing unique wildlife of the Galapagos Islands. So far, it's been a journey with so many different experiences. Now listeners, I don't know about you, but I've often wondered what motivates bike travellers to set off on such long journeys. For some, it's to see new countries, experience awe-inspiring landscapes, or even simply a personal challenge. To see, is it really possible for me to be able to do something this big? For Marta, the answer can be condensed down to a single word: fear. Or rather, proving to herself and others that you can break free from that fear, which so often holds us back. To say that you can do the thing, even if at times it means doing it scared. And she's great proof that often the hardest part of any adventure is actually making that very first decision to go and start it in the first place. I'm super looking forward to chatting with Marta today to learn more about her journey so far, the experiences she's had along the way, and the reality of what it's actually been like to be travelling through a continent solo for so long. Marta Ballús, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was an incredible introduction. I wouldn't have put it any better.
Marta, I'm excited to speak with you today. I think it's going to be a real gift to hear your stories and experiences from your time adventuring out there. But as listeners of the show will know, a question which I start my show with, and I ask it of all my guests, is, Marta Ballús, do you remember the very first bike you ever rode?
I do, actually. It was, I can remember not the brand or whatever, but I can remember small story that happened. So we were in a small summer village, like next to the beach. So I went back home on my bike. It was a white bike, really small bike. I was probably like 5 years old. When I got home, I just left the bike in front of the garage door and I went up home. And my parents were supposed to get home, open the door, and just put the bike in. So when they came home, they said, "Marta, where's your bike?" And I was like, "What? I left it in the front door." And they said, "No, it's not there anymore." And so they actually made me think that someone has stolen it. It was actually for me to learn not to leave stuff around, because the day after, they just came and they said, "Oh, Marta, your bike is back." And they left it on the front door exactly where I left it. And I spent years actually thinking that someone stole it and just gave it back until I was old enough to realize that no, that were my parents teaching me a lesson.
Has that lesson stuck with you now? Like, you're obviously, as I mentioned, on a super big adventure in South America. Do you ever think about your bike and bike safety and where you're going to lock things up?
Even though I think I'm sometimes overconfident, I get the feeling that nothing's going to happen. With my bike, right now in my trip, my bike is my home, is my everything. I never leave it off my side, and I always lock it. Even while camping, I just lock it whatever. They might still steal it from me, but it's gonna be harder for them, right? So, and I also have like some like trackers.
Like an AirTag type of tracker or something like that?
Yeah, if anything could happen, like I feel everything that I can control, I do it.
I imagine, Marta, also, it's a lot to do with the situation and your own surroundings. Like, you would be doing a scan and you're sort of making an assessment of, am I somewhere where I can trust that I'm in a small village and it's all fine? Or am I in a bigger city now maybe and I need to be a bit more careful here? Or am I somewhere in between? So I imagine there's lots of elements of that too, right?
Yeah, definitely. But what I always say is that you always need to have some common sense as well. As you said, when you're in a bigger city, you need to be just more careful and don't trust anyone. If you're in a smaller village, maybe you can be a bit more trusty, but also depending on the people you meet. For example, I know that sometimes I meet people, I make a quick judgment. I usually trust everyone, but sometimes you just don't get a good feeling about someone. And maybe it's a wrong judgment, but I would rather like not trust someone because I get the feeling that he's not to be trusted, and he's probably a good person and he was not intending anything wrong. But it's better to be just more careful. And what I say, trust your gut.
You've experienced so much. I think your instincts, you can trust your instincts on that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I've had really good experience trusting my instincts, actually.
You're on a huge journey there in South America. We're going to spend so much of this episode talking about it, but I actually want to know a bit more about your first adventures. We talked about you there cycling, your first bike memory, but what about growing up? Your first adventures in Spain? Were you a lover of the outdoors? Were you more a city person? Like, how did you even come to bike riding?
That can be a really long story, but I'll try to make it short. Yeah, so growing up, I'm the second of 4 siblings, and we always traveled with my parents, my family. We went skiing, we went horseback riding. We were doing all kinds of sports, tennis, especially tennis. I also played basketball during a long time. And after that, at some point, I felt like my basketball career had come to an end, and I started cycling. At first, it was just for as a like commuting. I needed a way to get to work, but then I started using it just for sport purposes, and I started to love it. It's really easy to fall in love with cycling, I think. Let's say my background in sports has always been competition. I've been playing basketball, always competing, tennis. Sports for me meant competition. So when I started cycling, I also started doing some competitions, doing races, and I absolutely loved it. And I've been racing for a few years, and I loved going to races every weekend. Every single weekend, I had a race somewhere because I love meeting up with people and with all those friends that I met during cycling, and it was more like an excuse to get together.
That social side of it as well.
Oh, yes.
I wonder then, because you're there solo, how much has that been a backdrop in your mind? From someone who turned to cycling as a way of being socially connected with people, and there's something amazing, even if you're competitive and you're competing against each other in a race. I've been to that atmosphere where it is about connecting and laughing with each other afterwards and sharing stories. What's it like when you're now doing something that's so far removed from that?
I mean, the good part about bike touring or bike packing, especially solo, is that whenever you want to be on your own, you can be on your own. But if you want to be with someone else, it's really easy to find someone and start talking and just socialize as well. And also, one of the best parts, I think, about traveling solo is that it forces you to connect, to socialize, to meet other people, to talk to other people, even to strangers, to whoever. And with that connection with other people, locals, tourists, whoever, that connection is what makes you grow. And yeah, it's where you get the best out of the trip, I think.
I think I've picked this up as a common thread with other bike travelers is especially if they're traveling solo, those connections are easier made because I think people probably perceive you're more approachable when you're on your own than if you were with a group or with a couple. Gosh, there's a whole myriad of discussions which will likely go down about traveling as a solo female, but I actually think there is an advantage to traveling as a solo female, which actually plays into that perception of fear, which actually plays into that misconception of you're doing something super dangerous. Because strangers think, oh my gosh, you're doing something super dangerous. And so they're looking out for you, but they're connecting with you with that in mind as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, like everything in life, everything has its pros and its cons. Traveling solo has its pros and its cons, and traveling solo as a woman as well. But after so many months, I really feel like there's more advantages than cons being a female, especially because of that protective feeling that people get when they see you. They feel like they need to protect you from bad people or from everything, which in a way is like, I don't need anyone like looking after me. I can look after myself. But in another way, it's like, okay, I can take advantage of that. And thank you so much for taking good care of me. And sometimes you really need that. I would say, like, I can really find the word in English, but it's like this, like, mother love somehow, someone caring a lot about you. And I've had that a lot during my trip, and I'm so grateful for that. There's one time that I was hitchhiking through the desert in Argentina. It was so extremely boring, so very hot. And I was like, this is not worth at all. So I can just try to hitchhike. So there was these guys, they stopped and they said, oh, we only stopped because you were a woman and we thought you needed help. And I was like, okay, I don't want to bring my feminist self right now because you are making me a favor and I'm taking advantage of that. But it's like opposite feelings at some point.
Yeah, I guess you'd nearly call it a weird paradox in that I've been told by pretty much every solo female this has been the best way to travel, that it's a lot safer than we are led to believe it is, that you don't need to be the bravest person in the world to do things. But also, it's that weird paradox because the majority of people think that you do need to be the bravest person to do things. And so that can be helpful as well, and it can help you in those situations. Can I ask, also, might I just add, how cool is it, Marta, that you get to now start a sentence with, I was in the desert in Argentina and I needed to hitchhike. Like these stories that you have got, this is just one day of so many days that you'll be able to tell stories about. But was hitchhiking something you would ever consider if you were, say, closer to home in Barcelona?
No, not at all. Never. It had never come to my mind. Actually, because first, it's forbidden in Spain to hitchhike. So it's not that easy to do so. I believe, for example, in France, it's much more common. It's not forbidden, though. I guess it's just in the culture that we are not used to seeing anyone hitchhiking. And so it's just something that just doesn't come to mind. But in Argentina, it's really common and it's really easy, actually. People are super used of people hitchhiking. A lot of Argentinians are even traveling just hitchhiking, and which I feel it's great. I mean, you're going that way, you don't care just to take someone else.
Yeah, and then you have the interactions of learning about the driver, they learn about you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm saying this as someone who's not hitchhiked. I have pitched a hitchhiker up before back when I was in Australia during a snowstorm, but that's a story for another show. I want to go back to your story. You mentioned how you fell in love with cycling as a sport, as competing and the social aspect of it. I want to know then, Marta, what gave you the idea for this journey? Had you taken some smaller bikepacking trips in Spain beforehand, or was this something that was taking you completely out of your comfort zone and you just wanted to find out about it?
Yes. For me, as I said, for me, cycling was in sports was about competition. But my sister actually is more of an adventure, like doing sport as an adventure and not so much about competition. And this one time that I told her, okay, I'm gonna bring you to my world. So you're gonna come to a stage race with me. And so we went to Morocco. And after that, I want to know what your sport feels like. So we went bike packing through Iceland together.
A sister bike tour in Iceland. This is brilliant.
Yeah. And I have to say, it was super hard for me. And I went back from there, like saying, never, ever again. At least not with her. No, no. I was horrible. I was in the mindset that of saying like, okay, I want to know how her sport feels like. So she's gonna be making all the decisions. I'm just gonna follow along. And that was really hard for me. I had like the worst days. But even though it was amazing, especially like the scenery and Iceland is incredible.
Mm.
But I came back from that trip saying, never, ever again. At one point, when I decided to go travel and just to make a huge change in my life, at first I was thinking about like doing so backpacking. But since I love cycling, I said, okay, so why not bike packing? Then Iceland come to mind. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it another shot. I don't want that experience to define bikepacking for me. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to go bikepacking my way. So I'm going to make my decisions. And that's how I will know if I really like bikepacking or not. And then also, once I start, it's much easier. Okay, if I don't like bikepacking, I can just sell the bike or just ship it or whatever and just buy a backpack. Going the other way around.
Oh, I like that. It reminds me of guest Sheila Daly. Hi, Sheila. I hope you're doing awesome there as Canadian winter is about to hit you. But her big trip, and she was really open about talking her anxieties before she started her trip. And one thing that she said was she always allowed herself that if she wasn't having fun, she was allowed to stop. And that's exactly what you're sort of saying. No one is going to think any less of you if you start doing something and then make the decision, you know what, I didn't like that, and stopping. No one's going to go, oh, wow, you didn't finish.
Yeah. And usually it go that way. It's like, okay, it's my life.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about it, right?
Superficial friends for judging you harshly if they do.
Yeah.
Hang on then. But did you have a bikepacking trip in between, or did you go from Iceland, I absolutely hate this, but maybe I'm going to try, and then you went and have started this adventure?
No bikepacking trip in between.
Wow.
No.
Oh, gosh. There's so many questions I have for this.
That's why I actually, before starting this kind of trip, one is also always full of fears and doubts and everything. Imagine I even had more since I have the other experience, I was super scared, but I was even more scared of not trying and regretting after a while.
I know this of myself. If I reflect back, I never regret trying to do something, but I always regret it if I've wanted to do something but have never let myself even try. And I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of people. So then my next question, Marta, is why South America and why such a big journey from South America? Was it that itch that you wanted to travel for so long? Like, how did you scheme this idea up?
Well, in reality, the turning point was when I got laid off from work. At that point, I was super stressed. I was like, I need to find another job because that's what I really need to do. And I'm no one here if I have no job and whatever. Well, that's what they make you think that you need, right? But at some point, I don't know if that ever happened to anyone else, but I got the feeling that I was on the car of my life, but I was on the co-pilot seat, and every other people in my life were holding the wheel and they were turning it anywhere, and I was just like going from side to side. This is because I was really living other people's lives and not really what I wanted to do. That turning point where I got laid off from work made me realize that I wasn't happy and I wasn't really living my life. That's when I decided to just do this journey and get a bit farther from all the people that were handling the wheel of the car and just taking the wheel myself and converting the car for a bicycle. I would only have one handlebar and I was the only one riding it, right? It's kind of a metaphor, but I feel it's really, you can really get the image. You can picture really what was going on. And that was really the reason why I decided to embark in this journey. And I can say at first, as we said before, I started the journey and I didn't know if it was going to be like 10 days long or a year long or even more. I knew I had a budget. I knew I had the legs, that my bike, and whatever it would take me. And if at some point I didn't like it, I can always stop. I think that was a really good decision because it helped me not really focus on a destination and having like a specific goal and forcing myself to reach it and just enjoy the journey.
How long then did you give yourself from making that decision to actually getting on the flight and stepping off in South America?
Well, I made the decision, let's say it was probably late October. Maybe I would have started before, but I had many obstacles. Like first, I had a surgery on my hand because I broke my bone in the last mountain bike race that I was going to do before the trip. I broke my hand, but I got a surgery and I could rehab before in time for the trip. And second, that I have a sister who lived in the US and she was coming to Spain for Christmas. So I said, I'm not going to leave before she comes. So I'm going to wait for her so I can see her. And then after Christmas, I will leave. It probably took a bit longer, but about 2 months since I made the decision and I left.
Did you find in that 2-month period, did you ever change your mind? Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. Or once you'd made that decision, you were 100% all in?
I think, no, I was 100% all in because, well, the thing is, I booked the flight to be 100% all in. And so there was no turning back, right? Because, yeah, obviously there were so many doubts at first. But what really made me be sure that I wanted to do that is actually I was talking to my sister because, well, I was full of doubts and I was like, I don't know if I should do it or not or whatever. And she said, okay, would you regret it after a few years? if you don't do it? And I felt like the answer was so clear to me that there was no doubt about it.
I want to talk a little bit then about how you prepped before you went there, because I think there's people who make that decision but then they get stuck with the next bit of it's all new to them and they don't know what they don't know, so they don't know how to prep, and then that becomes a mountain that's too big to climb, so they never climb it. You were talking there about you had all these doubts. Were the doubts about you and your ability? Was it about equipment, route, tracks, weather, challenges? Like, what were your doubts centered around?
I guess the doubts I thought I were the only ones I had were like about the equipment. So I focused everything on what should I bring, what should I take, where should I start and stuff. But there were so many other doubts that were hiding behind those equipment doubts. But what really helped me was listening to podcasts of experiences of other people, watching YouTube videos, even from people who were giving advice on even equipment or whatever for a bike trip. Also about videos of people just traveling, bike packing or bike touring. Because when you see that and you see like all those that scenery and how great it is, it gives you motivation. And also what was really important for me was I started telling people that I was going to do that. Many of them would say, "Oh my God, but you're crazy," or "I'm scared," or whatever. So these people who would just put me more and more fear inside of me, I had enough. I would just going like, "Okay, I told you already. Fine. I'm gonna talk to other people who were just motivating me and saying, this is gonna change your life. It's gonna be the best thing ever." That really helped me not take a step back.
Yeah, and not spiral into doubts brought on by others as well. I'm definitely someone, and listeners, I might come across as someone who's super positive all the time, but I can tell you living in Bella's head is not a nice place many times. And I'm someone who's quite anxious, so I understand the fear side of things, but I also have felt, and you know how people, Marta, have to practice meditation? I feel like I have to practice positive self-talk and positive psychology, and instead of being scared of something, I'm excited about this, and instead of being nervous, it's like, oh wow, I get to try something new. Like, that is something that I am every day trying to do, and I just love the idea that you knew that in yourself, that you needed to surround yourself with people that were reinforcing the good about what you were going to do, as opposed to pushing all those doubts into you as well. Can I ask, it sounds so trivial when we're talking about psychological states and doubts, but I want to go to equipment very quickly. What did you pack as a first-time solo bike packer for something so long? What did you start out with that you very quickly realised, I don't need this, and got rid of? Because everyone's got to have something, right?
Yeah, definitely. I packed some solar panels, but I realized I didn't need them after a while. And they were taking up space and it was heavy. So yeah, out.
And everyone's got their one luxury item, something that they know they can do without, but not something that they really can do without for them. What's your luxury item?
Yeah, I'm laughing because it's something I always ask all the cyclists I meet on the way.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah. For me, actually, I have so many things, so many luxury stuff. But I would say probably my computer. For such a long trip, I wanted to carry my laptop. I really didn't know what I was going to do, even maybe start working remotely somewhere or whatever. But actually, I have quite a lot of luxury items. Actually, that's why I'm a bit heavy. But I've used every single item I'm carrying.
The type of touring that you're doing there in South America, because and we didn't really get into this when you were talking about competing, the type of competitive races you were doing, mountain bike races, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mostly.
You're really comfortable then off-road. I imagine that has been really beneficial in some places.
Yes, but I'm really comfortable off-road, but I have to say that bike packing is like nothing like mountain biking because the bike is so heavy. So going downhill, which is the thing I love the most, mountain biking, you're just worrying that your panniers or whatever is going to break or going to be hard on your rear wheel. There's so much weight that every single like bump is really hard on the wheel, so the spokes can break. When mountain biking, I like to speed when going downhill. Going bike packing is another mindset. So you're going slowly. When you're going downhill, you're also like going really slowly. It's not like you're really enjoying all the speed and the rocks and the single trail and stuff. Also because single tracks, I just cannot feed. Like, sometimes there's single track that they're so narrow that my panniers will not go through them.
Oh, I think every bike traveler who rides with panniers could probably relate to this. Like everyone's had that experience where they've had to fit through a small gap and then realized, oh, I've got the panniers on the back. Am I going to fit?
Yeah.
Marta, if people were looking at what you've done so far, some of them would scratch their heads because it's not like a logical north to south or south to north route, is it? In fact, you've sort of split your bikepacking route through South America up into two sections.
Yeah, I would say my route is not like the standard route. It's just like Alaska to Ushuaia or the other way around, which is like the most common one. But I like it actually because I'm not standard.
The best adventures are unplanned ones too. I think that's
Oh,
great.
definitely. Yeah. When I started, I didn't have a specific route. I just knew I would start in Southern Chile and then went down to La Carretera Austral. Then after that, my idea was just to let myself go and let locals and other people just give me recommendations and you should go here, you should go there, and then just decide on the way and improvise a lot. At some point, also, I also realized that I needed kind of at least a direction, just to not be like zigzagging all the time and have some kind of focus. Even though that direction might change at some point, like it's not like unmovable goal. That's when I said, okay, I'm going to Colombia. That also came because everyone was like, and where's your destination and where are you going? And I was so fed up of saying like, I don't know, I don't have a destination. I just decided to say, okay, Colombia. And when I get to Colombia, if I want to keep going, then I can keep going.
Hey adventurers, have you dreamed of experiencing the magic of bikepacking but weren't quite sure where to start? Or maybe you're looking for a fun and supportive group to share an incredible journey with. Well, let me tell you about the Seek Travel Ride lightweight bikepacking tour, which is happening in the stunning foothills of the Pyrenees in late June 2025. This 6-night adventure is the perfect way to immerse yourself in the joys of bikepacking without the stress of having to carry heavy camping or cooking gear. I've got us starting and finishing in the amazing city of Toulouse. We're going to be exploring scenic routes, soaking in breathtaking views, and enjoying the camaraderie of like-minded riders. I've got you covered with hotel accommodation. All your meals and snacks are fully catered for. It truly is bikepacking made simple and accessible, especially for those who are looking to dip their toes in the water and see what this bike travel stuff is all about. Spaces are limited, so if this sounds like the adventure for you, simply visit the link in the show notes or go to seektravelride.com/bikepacking-Pyrenees to find out what it's all about. I'd love to help make 2025 your year of bikepacking adventures, and I can't wait to ride with you. Okay, now let's get back to the episode. It is one of those classic things because when people on the road see you, that is the, who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? Like, they're the classic questions you get straight up, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And where are you going? So I said Colombia just to set a destination, but it's a movable destination. I started going up north from southern Argentina, and when at some point I stopped on the way completely unplanned, and because I took a course to learn how to paraglide.
Oh, yes. This is the adventure that's coming out. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I actually loved that part because like I was not even planning to go through that small village, but I ended up there really randomly. Ended up meeting the guys from the paragliding school, and I decided to stay a month and a half there just to learn and just paraglide, and it was amazing. After a few months living a nomad life, when you're just stopped for a month and a half, you get that connection of people there, and I have family there right now. After that month and a half, I kept going north, but winter struck. It was winter, it was cold. I wasn't enjoying it that much. When I was supposed to cross over to Bolivia, Bolivia is so much higher, like 3,000 meters above sea level. I hate cold. That's actually why I decided not to go a lot south in through Patagonia. So I decided I had to make a decision because I didn't want to suffer that much because I'm not doing this to suffer too much. I mean, you're going to suffer sometimes, but it's not like you need to look after that so much. I mean, there's people who like that, but I'm not that kind of people. So yeah, so I decided then to book a flight to go over to Colombia, which is tropical and it's so much harder, and go south to join the two paths to go back to where I took the flight. The idea now is to get back to Salta, which is where I flew from, but it actually I'm gonna go a bit further to where I learned to paraglide to spend Christmas with my other family there.
What a gift. That's your own Christmas present to you. And I want to know what it was like for you. I know this is a bike traveling podcast, but I love this sense of adventure. What was it like for you strapping in for, was that your first tandem flight when you were there? And what was it like to then progress to a solo flight?
Yes. First, you do a tandem flight just to check if you like it, if you don't like it, and if you want to go over with the course. And at first, I was like, I don't even want to try the tandem flight because I know I'm gonna like it, and if I like it, I will have to stay here. And if I stay here, then the winter will come, and and then I will have a problem.
You obviously overcame that sort of thought.
Yeah, because also one of the philosophy I try to keep during my trip is like, or something I learned actually was that we tend to see problems that are still not there and like to see them in advance, like, and to worry about our problems that are not even there. And I decided to worry about the problems, only about the problems I have right now at the moment. And whenever the problem comes, in that case, whenever winter comes, then I will make a decision and then I will worry about that. But worrying about problems that are still not here just takes my peace away, right? Yeah, I did that tandem and I obviously loved it. Then I was also super scared of flying on my own. But you first like learn how to inflate the paraglide, and you have people like guiding you all the time. And I felt safe, even though I was super scared. And also, I even thought that would be like super calm thing to do, like just flying and just looking around and stuff. But it's so calm, but at the same time, there's so much adrenaline going on. It's so weird and cool at the same time.
Yeah, I imagine there's like a lot of concentration that needs to happen as well as you're going and understanding the thermal lifts and direction and things like that as well.
When you start, you're not like doing the thermal lift. First, you're just like flying and like you fly, you're going down, and then you land. That's all. Afterward, then you start searching a little bit of the thermal.
Because I guess that's part of the learning that you'd have to do as
Yeah.
well, isn't it? In case you need to do that, or if you get into a spin, maybe? Is that something you have to learn about as well, how to get out of a spin? Or because I see them spinning sometimes, I'm like, oh.
I mean, at a beginner's level, which is the one I am,
Yep.
not so much. You're never going to take off if the conditions are not like perfect. You're gonna wait for the perfect conditions to take off. Otherwise, you will not fly.
I love this. And you've got Christmas paragliding coming up.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna finish my trip flying. So I'm gonna bike and fly.
Listeners, if you're tuning in and you also are intrigued about paragliding or you have paraglided, get in touch with me. I want to hear your paragliding stories. Maybe you'll bump me out of my fear and allow me to give it a go as well.
Or maybe when I go to friends visit you, maybe I will take you.
There's a few places,
know?
literally I see them sometimes just off our ridgeline in our valley. And then if I go another valley along, there's like 2 big resorts and it's all about paragliding there. So it looks so majestic.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's bring us back to bikepacking.
Well, yeah.
What's it like then, Marta, starting out that first sort of week? Because I feel that's where you're still finding your rhythm. You're still working out where you've packed everything. You're still figuring out your routine, maybe understanding your own capabilities of how far you can go each day, and also dealing with the initial doubts of, can I do this? And things can be a bit more overwhelming at the start. Can you take me back to what it was like in that first week at the start and what that experience was like for you?
Yes. I started, as I said, in Southern Chile, and I decided to start there because there were friends of my parents there. So I said, okay, I'm going to spend New Year's Eve with you, and then I will start. But I was also so scared and so comfortable with them as well that I was like, every day I was kind of pushing the starting day. But at some point I said, okay, no, you need to like toughen up, and you came here for a thing and you need to start at some point. I decided to start on January 3rd. And at first it was like everything was amazing. Like everything was super exciting. And at first I also felt like I needed everything to be so planned and like, yeah, today I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do 50 kilometers and I'm gonna follow this route. And after a while, I realized, no, I was just like, I'm gonna end up in some place anyway. So let's just go and decide on the way, right? But I think the planning thing came more out of fear that like I was afraid of probably not finding a place to stay or ending up whatever in the middle of nowhere with no water or just lost or with some strangers or whatever. But after a while, I realized that was not that important. Also, it also depends on where you are. There are places where you really need to plan ahead a little bit and say, okay, today I'm going to try to get here or here and have like at least 2 options or something. But there's other countries or areas in which you can wild camp anywhere and that you really don't need to plan that much ahead.
With wild camping, something I think I came up across on this is you don't actually enjoy camping that much, do you?
No. Okay, so I don't like camping. Obviously, it's not comfortable. It's not as comfortable as a bed. You don't have showers. You don't have running water or whatever. For me, it's not comfortable. It's okay. Also, because my past experience on my previous bikepacking trip in Iceland, that was horrible. Actually,
I need to hear this story. What happened? What happened?
okay, so I went bikepacking to Iceland with my sister a few years ago, and that had been my only bikepacking experience before this trip. I was going with my sister who loves adventure, loves camping, loves outdoors, everything. And she always feels the need to go one step further and to find the limit everywhere. And in that trip, my mindset was to follow her steps and let her make the decisions and just lead however she likes to live the adventures. And we were camping absolutely every day. Even though there was a refugee there, no, she was not willing to pay for camping or whatever. No, we had to wild camp everywhere. So I'm really cold blooded.
You get cold easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did mention you like the heat a lot.
Yeah. Also, I didn't have much experience camping, so I probably didn't have the best gear with me. The thing is, in Iceland, let's say it's not really hot weather, warm weather. It's always raining as well. And we had a lot of river crossings. So my feet were soaking wet the whole day. Also at night, that didn't help either. Wild camping didn't help. After a few weeks, when I got back, my feet were frozen. And I spent like a month and a half that I could barely walk because my feet were frozen. So that's why a little bit why I like say camping, whatever.
Well, it did sound a bit miserable, let's face it. Like cold and grim. And I remember once coming across some people who were bikepacking through Iceland, and I think it was the middle of summer, and the top temperature was going to be 4 degrees.
Yeah, the thing is, in Iceland, you can never know if it's gonna be hot, warm. You can have like the four seasons in just one day.
I imagine you've had places in South America that have been a bit like that too, when you're high up in elevation.
Well, yes, but I guess I was more prepared both mentally with my gear because actually when I was planning all the gear I had to bring, even though I knew I was going to winter to summers, even though that I was packing as if I was going to like a really cold winter. And actually, I thought you asked that before, and I didn't answer that. Why South America? It's actually because when I got laid off from work, that was end of October when I decided to travel. At first, I wanted to do that through Europe, but the winter was coming, and I was like, no, no, I'm not going to do that in winter, especially also because of short days. I went, okay, where's summer? South America, Africa, and Australia and New Zealand. Australia and New Zealand is a completely different budget. Africa was not really attractive to me. So I said, okay, South America.
You are right about Australia and New Zealand being a different budget. And actually, New Zealand, I think it's illegal to wild camp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it makes it even harder. I'm not saying that people haven't. I'm just saying it's against the law. So,
yeah. In Spain, it's the same, and people also wild camp hidden somehow.
In France, it's legal to do what's called bivouac, which is a wild camp, but you're only allowed to do that. I think it's only for one night in one place. Not anywhere where it's stated you're not allowed to camp. And in that restrictions, there's hour limit, there's time limit. So it might be you're not allowed to set up camp before 7:30, and you need to have been packed up and gone by, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning or something like that as well.
Whoa.
You know, if you're going over mountains and stuff like that, and it's probably more intended for hikers more than bikepackers,
Yeah.
but for sure people wild camp in France all the time.
Yeah.
I love that you were chasing summer, and that even with your route planning, you made the right decision, I think, to not make yourself feel miserable. I think something you've mentioned a couple of times is you're not doing this to challenge your absolute limits. You're doing this to enjoy yourself as well.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people would think you doing this is challenging enough as it is. Something you mentioned very early on was you had given yourself the permission that if you stopped liking it, you would just stop. Have you ever been close to having to think about making that decision for yourself? Or have you found you've just always enjoyed what you're doing?
Oh, definitely. Actually, many times there's that thought that comes to mind that says you should go back home, or what are you doing here, or okay, it's time to go back. You've done enough, or something like that. But I've also come to a point now that I think I learned to know myself enough to know what I need in every moment. So let's put an example. About a month ago, I was leaving Peru. I was doing a bike packing route. It was pretty demanding and pretty hard. And I suffered a lot. And so at one point, I got burned out. Also, I had mechanicals, and that didn't help at all. And I understood myself, and I knew that what I needed was to not keep going through that route, to find an easier route, and just to rest for some days, leave the bike alone for some days. After a while, you realize that first, when you're in a bad moment, there's no sense in just like feeling sorry for yourself or crying yourself out or just waiting for people to solve your problems. Obviously, you need to understand what's happening to you, and you know that everything will pass at some point. What might seem a mountain right now, after few weeks, it might seem like absolutely nothing, just a little bump in the road. But for that to happen, you also need to keep moving forward. Because when you keep moving forward, is when good things happen, good people happen, and that's what will make it pass. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And you've learnt to probably have that conversation with yourself. I'm not talking about out loud, or even if you do, who cares? But
Well,
to know that, okay, I'm in a bad situation, but I know that I'll get out of it. I don't know whether you would have had that ability without knowing yourself through taking this journey. Like, if this had happened in the first day or two, maybe you would have sold the bike and gone backpacking. Who knows? But now you're realizing how to get through those bad moments for you as well.
yeah, and that's one of the most valuable learnings I get from the trip, getting to know myself and understanding what I need at every moment. After that burnout I was talking to you, I stayed in La Paz for a week and a half. There are many routes that I would have been able to take, and some of them were super nice, and I wanted to see those places as well, like Sajama. But I heard it was a really hard route with lots of sand and lots of bike pushing, and I knew my mind was not prepared for that at that moment. And what I really needed is to feel like I was going forward and I was advancing in my route. So I decided to take the high road. I was advancing like 100K a day almost. That really helped me a lot psychologically.
Yeah.
And once I got to Uyuni, to Salar de Uyuni, which was one of the highlights of my trip since day one, like I knew I wanted to go to Uyuni.
Oh, we have to talk about it. We'll keep going on this, but we're going to go there straight after.
So once I got there, I my mind completely changed, and I felt like it had passed, like the burnout had passed.
Again, it comes back to trusting yourself in a way, Marta, and trusting your instincts and making the right decision for you, knowing I don't need to take the really challenging route when I know that what's going to make me feel better about this journey is making progress and taking the less challenging route. But I imagine that the less challenging route was probably amazing as well. Like, it's not to say that, you know, one's going to be flat and boring, one's going to be really harder and more memorable. Like, I think when you're in the moment doing it, you don't need to compare.
Exactly. And one of the things, like the hardest things that I've learned, and I kind of feel a bit of shame, like recognizing this, but I've learned that there's not only one answer to everything or one correct way to do things, and that there's many options, and the path you will take or the decision you will make will be the correct one for you, and if not, then you can change. And I really feel like the educational system that we've been educated in has so much to do with this, that I felt so unconfident before that, always like scared of making the wrong decision, because I always felt like there's only one answer to everything, and I needed to get the correct one. And why is that? Because when I'm in school, I take a test and they're saying, okay, there's only one correct answer. And that's what they've always taught us. I'm really ashamed that it took me so long to understand that. But right now, I feel like it's also like a snowball. The more decisions that I make, the more even wrong decisions I make, the more confident I am, the more confident I am, the more decisions I make. And that's also really big learning from the trip.
I think it goes hand in hand with that idea that each decision you make brings you another experience that you then have to reflect back on in a hard time to remind you that you can get through the next hard time because you got through this experience.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really powerful to know about yourself.
Yeah. And I really feel that, because when I started the trip, I was like, I don't really know what I'm looking forward in this trip, but I guess I will figure it out at some point. But after some time, I understood that what I really needed and what I was really looking forward was that self-confidence.
I'm going to do something that sounds really silly, but if you had to reflect back to Marta at the start, before kilometre 1 is pedalled, and give yourself a rating from 1 to 10, 1 being very, very low, 10 being through the roof, hit the ceiling high, of what your self-confidence was at the start to what it would be now, what would you give me?
At the start?
Yeah.
Oh, I could say at the start it was probably a 2. And right now it's probably a 9. And 9 because I always feel like there's always more than you can learn, and more. It's a never-ending learning path. But I would say right now I'm in a 9.
Well, my introduction for you, Marta, I rattled off the many different reasons that people have to have a big journey, and like just hearing you talk about what you've learnt about yourself and the self-confidence. Not many people go on a journey to try and find these things about themselves, but it's possibly one of the biggest gifts that you could have given yourself. Like, how awesome is that? I'm so proud of you and happy for you. And listeners, if that's got to be a big neon sign to all of us to say, take that bike adventure. Even if it's a week long, it doesn't need to be a year long, does it, Marta? Just challenge yourself, put yourself out of the comfort zone and embrace the uncertainty.
I know it sounds so much of a cliche, like get your comfort zone and stuff, but it's so true. When you're uncomfortable, that's when you learn. And one of I have a quote that I really like sharing, is that you need to do what scares you until it doesn't. Because that's true. Right now, I've gotten so much more comfortable with bikepacking that I'm probably not as scared as I was at the beginnings. And I think we are all scared of everything we do at some point. Even though you're a professional cyclist, for example, the first time that you rode a bike when you were super young, I'm pretty sure you were scared. But right now, it's not something that scares you, right?
It's not so much practice makes perfect. It's more you do it and do it and do it, and then you realise, oh, I can do that.
Exactly.
Keep doing the thing that scares you. Don't let that thing make you stop in your tracks and not try. I love that so much. Hi listeners, I want to take a quick moment to talk about an awesome way that you can support me out here on Seek Travel Ride, as well as gear up for your next bike adventure. Now, if you've been dreaming about taking your bike travel setup to the next level, you need to check out our show supporters, Old Man Mountain. Their racks are the real deal, they're rugged, they're versatile, and they're ready to take on any adventure, no matter what bike you're riding or which roads or trails you're going to be riding on. But here's the best part. By clicking our bespoke link, which is oldmanmountain.com/Seek Travel Ride, you're letting Old Man Mountain know that you heard about them right here on the Seek Travel Ride podcast. It's a great way to show your support for the show while discovering gear that's been trusted by adventurers all around the world. So hit pause, or don't, multitasking for the win, right? And head to that link. I've provided it in the show notes, so it's nice and easy for you. That's oldmanmountain.com/seek travel ride. Let's keep the adventure rolling together, and let's get back to the episode. Something we touched on just before was the Salar de Uyuni. I know that it's like a mega milestone for so many bike travellers. So many bikepackers go to South America primarily to have that experience. And all the guests I've spoken to who've been there just tell me it's like an alien landscape. It's such a foreign place to be riding. I want you to describe it for me. How do you describe it?
Oh. Okay, so it's such I don't really know where to start. It's obviously something you must leave, that even though you can see pictures and videos and listen to experience of others, you will never get the same feeling. I had watched many videos, many pictures, and even though I don't like doing that in advance of going somewhere, but Salar is Salar, so it's just not possible not to see any pictures before. I have to say that I thought I would feel more lost than I actually felt. I can say I'm pretty good in orientation, so that helps. But still, like being there in the middle of nowhere, everything is white. You still have few references, but there is absolutely no one. And the cool thing is that what you're stepping on is hard and it's salt. And it's not like you're walking on sand, it's a hard surface and you can hear the crack. And for me, it felt magic. And also, the sunsets there are incredible, they are amazing.
Because you'd have the biggest horizon, right?
Exactly. You have nothing. It's the horizon completely, and those colors. Because also there's this huge temperature difference from day. It's pretty hot during the day and really cold during at night. So that generates a lot of winds. After sunset, when the sun goes down, then all the cold winds start blowing. But I can't really describe what the feeling is like. I remember I have a video of myself saying, I'm just happy. It's like I fulfilled the dream. And I was happy. That's all. I didn't read anything else, even though I was camping.
So you can be a happy camper, but only on the Salar de Uyuni.
The thing is, after that, I found I don't dislike camping that much, but like I like it for 1 or 2 days, but not more. After that, I like a cozy bed, a shower.
The little comforts. And that's fair, because I think also, see, I love camping because I love that I can make things really, I can see how simple things can be. I love that feeling of excitement, Marta, and maybe you can understand this part of unzipping the tent first thing in the morning to peek outside and seeing what day have I got today.
Yeah.
Do I have some sky magic from the sun, or is there a bit of low fog?
I really enjoy the silence, though.
You would have had so much of that on the Salar as well, right?
Yeah. That was also one of the feelings where like there's absolutely no one. I also went to a part of the Salar where there were not that many trucks and cars going around every day because I wanted to be lonely alone. So I had absolutely no one going around. The silence was incredible, and also the night was amazing. The sky, yeah. I like camping as long as it's just it's not like a need. I need to camp here to pass the night, so like I just camp wherever, even close to a village or whatever. When it's in the nature itself, and as you said, like unzipping and watching the nature and hearing the birds and don't hear any car noises or whatever, that I like, obviously. But you don't get that that much during a bike trip.
Yeah, and I imagine in some places you don't have your own space when you come somewhere because say you come to a village, well, hang on, who is this woman on a bike coming through our village? There's so much intrigue and curiosity from the people that you meet.
Yeah.
Marta, it's not lost on me that traveling through some of the areas you've traveled through, there's also these cultural learnings that you give yourself, just learning about a place, learning about its culture. And I saw a beautiful post that you had put up about the strong Peruvian indigenous women that you had come across. And it really caught my eye because they wear these most amazing, colourful, beautiful, proud outfits. And I just thought, I want to talk about this with you and I want to learn about them through your experience of them. Tell me about these lovely women.
Well, especially both Ecuador and Peru, I've seen in the countryside where women are working the whole day and even like super hard work. Like you need to be really strong for that. Like kind of jobs that in our culture would be more associated with men jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to sound like how do you say like machista? I don't know. I don't know
Oh,
how
I
to
know
say
what
it.
you're talking about. I think we're both aligned in that we believe that, women can do so much. You don't want to say like, oh my God, you're doing the man's job. I know exactly what you
Yeah,
mean.
exactly.
Yeah, it's not a common sight for us to see women physically labouring like that either.
Exactly. So such physical jobs, and they are out working the whole day, and then when they get back home, they are still working because they need to cook. Because in this side, women are the ones who are cooking. The thing is also in the conditions I see they are working with, like under the sun in high altitude, they are carrying so much stuff. You see women, super like pretty old women, carrying like these huge things on their back. And I'm really amazed how they can do all that stuff. And these women, when they see you, they still have a smile on their face to give you. And that for me is precious.
Real examples of like strong and resilient.
Yeah, completely. And they never complain. I mean, it's their life, and when you see that, that's also when you realize how lucky you are, how lucky we are to be born where we are born, and you feel also a little bit powerless. Like, okay, what can I do to help them? Like nothing. The only thing I can do for them is just wave, say hello, and smile at them. And sometimes I love doing that a lot when I'm bike traveling, because you really don't know how this smile can change someone's life, someone's day at least. Like just saying hello, waving hello. These people, you really don't see any tourists or anyone else. Seeing someone new, someone foreigner, and just smiling at them and maybe talking to them for 5 minutes, that can just change their day.
This takes me again is a very recent podcast. Rob McLennan, he rode from London all the way to Cape Town through Africa, and something he told me which stuck with me was, in Africa you're never alone, and so you go through a village and everyone is, wow, who are you, and up to you and asking you where you come from, where are you going, what are you doing, and you can be overwhelmed with that or fed up with it at times. But he taught himself that this is a real privilege to do what I'm doing. And for me to spend 5 minutes talking to this person is a beautiful thing for this person, and it's fair to do for their experience. Is that something that resonates with you, Marta?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's true that at some point you can be like, okay, it's the same questions over and over and over again. But you need to also understand it's different people over and over and over again for them. And it's new for them. So
Yeah.
what, as that person you interviewed said, it's I'm so privileged to be here. What does it take for me just to answer a few questions? I guess that's their highlight of the day or even the month, to meet me and talk to me. So it's not that much. to give, right?
I guess it's the balance where you have to be fair on yourself. If you're in moments where mentally you're done, like I could imagine sometimes you would have to remind yourself of that potentially to go, hey, shake yourself out of this and, be nice to these beautiful people. Like, because I'm sure
Yeah.
you've had some pretty amazing interactions with strangers, no doubt, on this entire journey, right?
Yeah, yeah, and so many like incredible experiences that I would have never imagined. I would have never believed if someone would have told me that would happen a few years ago.
Oh, well, I want to do something, Marta. I asked this question of all my guests, and that is for them to tell me about one day of their trip. And I always say it can be any day, any country, anything could happen. But I'd like you to pick a day where you're telling me about this incredible experience maybe you had with a stranger that you would never have believed this situation could have happened before. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm going to let you think about it and tell me about that day and take me and the listeners there.
Okay, so there are many experiences, and also I'm sure there are many that I just cannot think of right now. I'm just gonna tell one random one I can popped into my mind right now. So I was crossing the border from Chile to Argentina, and crossing a border is always like a challenging thing to do, because like there's so many new things and so many new things you have to understand and learn about this new country. But besides that, then you have to go to customs, and like depending on the country, they are more strict or less. But that day, so the guy who through customs, I just went through the window, and the guy said, "Oh, what a nice surprise!" And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And he ended up being he liked cycling as well, and he was so nice to me and said, "Okay, oh, what a nice trip and stuff. Go ahead." And he also said, "Oh, do you have a moment? Please give me your number in case you need anything from Mendoza or whatever." I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you. So the day after that, he just called me and said, "Hey, I'm still working here at customs, but today is a Sunday, and my brother is having an asado at home, which is like barbecue, and he would love to meet you, and I will send you the address. So go there, and he's waiting for you." And it was like, okay. At first, obviously, you start like, okay, this is kind of weird. But okay, let's give it a try. As we said, like common sense and like trust a little bit your gut. And it felt quite safe. So I went there, and yeah, and they hosted me. They invited me to the asado, and a few days later, they even invited me to stay at their place. And right now, we have a really good friendship, and all because of that guy I met through customs. And for me, that was such a crazy experience.
Marta, I get really enthusiastic seeing other bike travellers, people who take bike adventures. It's always like, wow, I wonder where they're going. And me being me, I do this podcast to learn their stories, for crying out loud.
Yeah, which is amazing. Well,
I can be that person in the customs booth being excited to see someone, but the fact that they've then said, hey, go and see my family member. I'm not there, but they will love to host you. Like, that's just going above and beyond, isn't it?
yeah, that's incredible. Also, I have to say that it's something that happens in Argentina. I mean, Argentinian people are really open in that way and inviting people over and stuff. But still, this is not something like really common.
Mm.
Yeah, it's crazy, and
Yeah.
I love it. And I'm pretty sure if I was going through customs only with a backpack, that would have never happened. So the bike was my passport there.
Yeah, the bike was the conversation starter and the passport to such a beautiful experience. I have to ask, I can't do a podcast episode without talking about food at some stage.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
That was obviously, you were talking about there that you went to an Argentinian barbecue, and I've heard many things about Argentinian barbecue, and big sorry to vegetarian and vegans who are listening to the show. But actually, regardless, whether in an Argentinian barbecue or anywhere, tell me about a food experience that is quintessentially South American that you have enjoyed. Tell me about something that you'd never had before in Spain that you had for the first time on this journey.
Ooh, that's hard. So, I mean, it's probably not like super incredible, but in Colombia, there were so many kind of fruits, so many that I didn't know and I have never seen before. That at some point I was like, I haven't tried this one yet. I haven't, and there were so many of them that I had to try, and I love fruit. I still think I left few of them without trying, but there were so many, and that was incredible and so cheap and so good fruit. Sorry, I love food as well. So
You know what I love about this? Like, fruit is just, to me, I love trying like beautiful, fresh fruit. It's like pure energy. And you know how you were saying about trying something different that you'd never tried before? I have to give a very special shout out to my beautiful Scottish friends, Alison and her son, Ewan. Hello. Because if I'm correct, I think Ewan's Christmas gift last year, his request was that he wanted to try all these different exotic fruit for the same time. I just thought of him straight away when you were telling me about Colombia and then just trying all these exotic fruit that you'd never seen before.
yeah.
What's going to happen when you go back to Barcelona? You're going to have to seek them out somehow.
No, they're so expensive.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. That's a downside. That's why it was a special Christmas present, right?
Yeah, and what I guess also like something I've learned also through this trip is to adapt to what you have at the moment at that place. I know in Colombia there were so many fruits and so good fruits that once I've been going south, I've been losing some of that, and so now I only have bananas and I know apples. Well, I'm gonna eat bananas and apples. That's fine. I mean, just cherish what you have and it's fine. I'm also like pretty looking forward to losing the chicken with rice because ever since Colombia, it has been chicken with rice all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't go with that anymore. But yeah.
I have to say, this takes me to another guest, Muriel Zekuri. Hi, Muriel. Oh, gosh, I spoke to Muriel very early on in the podcast, but he had this experience when he was traveling, I think, was it through the Gulf region or was it Central Asia? But either way, it was like, do you want chicken with rice or rice with chicken? it was the same options.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, sometimes you could have like fried chicken or just baked chicken. No, sometimes you even have the option with. Oh, and another thing I tried and I was really looking forward to try is that they eat. I've seen this especially in Ecuador and a little bit in Peru. They eat these like guinea pigs.
Oh, I've seen those before, yes. Which is weird to me because we keep guinea pigs as pets.
Yeah. They pet them as well, but they just pet them to eat them.
Yeah. Some people do that with chickens. I can understand that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm leaving Ecuador and I still haven't tried the cuy and I need to find a way. And so like the day before leaving Ecuador, I finally was able to try the cuy, which was actually pretty good. If you don't think what you're eating, the taste is pretty good.
What does it taste like? Is it a bit like chicken or rabbit, I guess?
It's more like a rabbit, yeah, but it's like a very tasty rabbit. It's really tasty and it's really good and it doesn't have much grease.
Yeah, it's very lean meat. That's a very unique experience. You're not getting that back at home in Barcelona.
Oh no, I don't think I can have that. But I miss so much food from Spain. Like, I will eat enough when I get back.
I have to ask you, and again, I realise this is a long food segment, and who knows, maybe I'll even cut it out. But I personally want to know, Marta, the thing I love about Spain is tapas, or if I go to the Basque Country, pinchos. What is your favourite? Like, what are you ordering if you're going?
Tapas. If I'm going to tapas.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the typical jamón ibérico.
I'm going to tell you mine. And like I said, I might cut this out, but my personal one, actually, firstly, and I got this for the first time ever in Barcelona. I didn't even know this was a thing. I just call it tomato bread. I don't know what you call it, but it's like the bread that's rubbed with garlic, and then you've got the passata sauce. Oh my God, that is the best thing in the world. What do you call it?
Pam tumacat. So every time someone asks me what's the thing I miss the most from my hometown, that's pam tumacat, like a good piece of bread with the tomato and the olive oil. That's the best thing.
I haven't been able to replicate that yet. I don't know if you can teach me how. Or maybe you come to me for paragliding. I'll come to you for pantomata.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Whenever you want. So actually, since you were asking the luxury thing, one of the luxuries I always bring on my bike is a bottle of olive oil.
I love that you bring olive oil. That's brilliant. Oh, yeah. I can't live without that stuff. No way.
Yeah. Actually, my parents came to visit in Peru. So we spent my birthday together in October. And I asked them, please bring me a bottle of olive oil, some jamón, and yangunisa, which is like some dry sausage.
In France, they do a lot of that. It's like saucisson is what they call it there.
Yeah, exactly.
Marta, I feel like I need to wrap the show up, and I don't want to, but time always does this. I want to ask you something quickly. There's a lot of people that listen to this show and seek out inspiration to go and try things. And a lot of people aren't necessarily looking to take a year off to try bikepacking or bike touring somewhere. You know, they might only have a long weekend or a week or a month, but they're still holding themselves back perhaps because they're not sure whether they can do it. What would you now, so many months into this long journey of yours, what would you tell those people that are maybe holding themselves back?
Okay, so I would say, like, to overcome your fears, you need to face them. So the only thing you need to do is to start. Whether if it's a long trip or just a weekend trip. I always think that having a weekend trip is like the best ways to start. Start with a weekend. If something goes wrong in a weekend, I mean, you can always go back or call someone, or you're not that far away. Nothing can happen, like nothing really really bad can happen, right? So just start with the weekend, and then after that, if you like it, because you might not like it, so it's perfectly fine. If you like it, then you will then look for a 4-day trip or a week trip or whatever, and try probably for starters to find maybe easy routes. I don't know. There are many routes that are very defined already. Like the Camino de Santiago is one, like really, really famous. There are many others I know around Spain, but around the world there are also many others. Just look for an easy way for starters, and then you will be more comfortable to just try other things. But just start.
Often just making the decision and starting is the hardest part. And you will always find a way. You'll always be able to work it out.
Exactly.
I love that. Marta, people who are listening to your story for the first time, they want to follow your adventures and see them unfold. What's the best way that they can follow you there online? How can they see what you're up to?
So the best way is to follow me on Instagram is at Marta's Way. As I explained, this trip was about finding my own way and making my own decisions and doing things my way. That's why the name of Marta's Way.
I love it. And listeners, you're listening to this in English. And can I just say, Marta, it never ceases to amaze me when I interview guests where English is not their first language, and just your proficiency in the language is amazing. Your posts are in Spanish. Instagram has a brilliant translate button. Listen, it's so worth going and trawling back through your stories and your pictures and taking you there. You have a really great visual way of showing your way in Marta's Way, and I will provide a link in the show notes. Give Marta a follow and keep watching this adventure unfold.
Thank you so much. Thank you, so much for having me. And I've been so, so comfortable in this conversation with you. And yeah, and even though my posts are mostly in Spanish, sometimes I try to just translate some things in English because I know there's some followers that just don't understand Spanish.
There's also an element where Instagram is photos and videos and they tell their own story without words needed.
Yeah, that's true.
Marta, I have 3 very quick questions to finish the show with. The first one is, as a guest of the podcast, you now get to choose a song that will go onto the Seek Travel Ride music playlist. It's over 5 hours long, available on Apple and Spotify. What are you going to pick to be the song that is the soundtrack to your adventure?
Okay, so it's probably not like the best song ever, but it's one song that I found myself singing on the top of my lungs some some days, and just the name is very descriptive of what I feel while bike traveling. And the song is called Libertad, which means freedom, by Neil Moliner.
Oh, I love it. And I love that it brings that freedom. Often at the start of the show when I ask people, do they remember the very first bike they ever rode? The word that they come up with was freedom when they start pedaling, and that's stuck with them through their journeys. And I love that freedom is the word that you feel on this journey. Okay, next question. You're given a choice one day, Marta, and you can go in one direction, which will be sending you on a road. For the whole day, you'll be having to cycle on a never-ending, bumpiest, washboard, corrugated dirt road. I'm not talking about ones you can wind around. I'm talking about real vibrations here. Or you can choose to go the other way, and if you do that, then you will be going forever into a solid headwind. Which one are you going to choose?
Oh, God. This is really hard.
It is.
I guess I would choose the second one.
The headwind.
Yeah.
Go Team Headwind.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Because, as I said, everything passes, and the wind at some point someday will stop. And the sand and the bumpy thing will be there forever.
Oh, that is such a valid point, listeners. You're right. You're right.
Yep.
Because I guess if you were even into the headwind, you could stop and turn around and you could hear again.
Yeah, just stop the tent and wait for it to calm down.
Very good. Well, I'm glad that you're in Team Headwind there. It's a new way of putting the question out there, so I've added you to the team. Okay, final question, Marta. This is a very new question. I've only just started asking it, and I want you to finish this sentence for me, and it is, the best thing about taking a bike adventure is...
Best thing about all the unexpected things, all the good unexpected things that happen to you.
Oh, I love it, because it's the very nature and the essence of the word adventure to me.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
There will eventually be some bad unexpected things, but the best thing is the best unexpected things, which there are so many more than bad. Yeah.
I love it. And I love this new question because everyone has a different answer and it's beautiful.
I'm actually right now, I'm downloading all the podcasts for the next 2 days. I want to know all the answers to these questions as well.
Well, this is a very new one, so you're going to have to look for this one in the future. You'll be interested to hear a lot of the answers in the old one. And I think also there's so many common threads from the guest stories, but it's so clear, and it's something that I love about bike adventures, is everyone's adventure is their own adventure. There are no two adventures that are exactly the same. And I think that's one of the best things about it as well. It's your experience, and I love being able to share it. Marta Ballús, it has been an absolute pleasure to just chat with you today. I've been smiling pretty much the whole time, just listening to your stories, hearing about the reasons why you decided to take on bikepacking, despite having a horrendous first experience in Iceland. The idea that you wanted to take control of the handlebars, be the person in charge of the way that your life was going. And I think the other thing that I loved is just hearing you talk so confidently about yourself and being so certain within yourself. You went from a 2 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 on self-confidence, and I don't know that there's many things in life that can do that in such a short amount of time, and I just think it's such a beautiful thing. There was a quote that I came up from you, which you had written reflecting back on your journey 6 months in. This was what occurred to you when you were first starting. You said, I remember thinking, I'm going to Patagonia by bike. I don't know where I'm going. Maybe in 10 days I'll get tired and I might go home. I wasn't aware what I was getting myself into. But listening to you now, Marta, it's so beautiful. Do the thing that makes you scared and do it over and over again, and it's not scary anymore. As Marta says, listeners, the best thing to do is to just start. You'll figure it out. All is to say, Marta Ballús, it has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing your story and experiences here on the podcast for Seek Travel Ride.
Thank you so much for having me and for these past 2 hours, which went flying. I really, really hope to see you back in France, Barcelona, or whatever in the world.
Everywhere. Oh, definitely. Oh, you can come to my mountains and I'll come and have tapas with you in Barcelona. We'll do both.
Definitely.
Well, listeners, I don't know about you, but I am so energized hearing Marta speak about that journey of hers, and I feel so strongly to say that she's just another awesome example of a strong woman who's decided to go out and do the thing that scares you anyway, and do the thing and take a bike adventure. There were so many great insights from her experiences here, and as I said during the episode, the gift of self-confidence, I don't think we can downplay how important that is. I also really love that at the start, when Marta was talking about planning the journey, how she learnt pretty quickly that she needed to surround herself with people that were positive about what she was going to do and remove some of that negative talk away from her. As I mentioned, I struggle sometimes with negative talk, and I'm trying constantly to teach myself to be more positive about things. And I think that's a great little mini tip that I will take on board, and perhaps some of you will as well. I cannot wait to see where Marta's adventures keep taking her, because I'm guaranteed that when this journey in South America is over, I think she's got the bikepacking bug, and I think there'll be more adventures to come. So listeners, if you're enjoying the podcast and you want to find out more about Seek Travel Ride, make sure that you sign up to our Seek Travel Ride newsletter, where every edition that I send out gives you information about upcoming guests, previous guests, and where they're up to in their journeys, as well as news from the community within Seek Travel Ride. It's a truly global community. We have listeners who are all around the world, and it's a privilege to share your story. The link to the newsletter sign up is in the show notes. Click on that link, sign up, and you will continue to get Seek Travel Ride news delivered to your inbox. Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.